It was a typical day in Los Angeles, the sun shining brightly, cars zooming by, and the usual hustle and bustle of a busy city. Elon Musk was on his way to a meeting, cruising down a quiet street in his sleek black Tesla, lost in his thoughts. His day had been filled with back-to-back calls, business decisions, and emails, but like any other day, he tried to carve out a few moments of peace. The soft hum of the car's electric engine and the scenic view outside were his only companions. But suddenly, as he turned a corner, something caught his eye, a car stranded by the side of the road. It wasn't an unusual sight in LA, where broken-down cars seemed to be as common as the palm trees. However, there was something about this particular car that seemed to draw Elon's attention. It wasn't the car itself, but the person standing beside it. A young woman, in her mid-30s, looked distressed, her hands buried in her hair in frustration. Elon slowed down his car instinctively. At first, he considered just driving past. After all, he had a busy schedule, and stopping to help was not something he usually had time for. But then something strange happened. As he passed the woman's car, she looked up, and for a split second, their eyes locked. Elon couldn't explain it, but there was something in her eyes that made him pause. He wasn't the kind of person to stop for every stranded car, after all, he was just one person, and there were many others on the road. But he couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. Something about the situation didn't sit well with him. Without thinking, Elon turned his car around and stopped right behind the stranded vehicle. He put the Tesla in park, his hands lingering on the wheel. He sat there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. He wasn't a mechanic, after all. But he couldn't just leave her there. He stepped out of the car and approached the woman, who was now staring at the hood of her car as if it had betrayed her. "Hey, are you okay?" Elon asked, his voice carrying a genuine concern that surprised even him. The woman looked up, startled. She hadn't expected anyone, let alone a celebrity like Elon Musk, to stop and offer help. "Yeah, I'm fine. My car died, and I don't know what to do," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. She looked at the Tesla and then back at him, a mix of disbelief and confusion. "Wait, are you Elon Musk?" Elon gave a small chuckle. "Yeah, I know it's a bit strange for me to stop, but I couldn't just drive by." She blinked, not sure if she was dreaming. "You're really stopping to help me?" "I guess so," Elon replied, shrugging. "I mean, you're not going to fix your car by just staring at it, right?" His light-hearted tone was meant to ease the tension, but the woman seemed even more stunned. The situation felt strange to him too. Here he was, the founder of some of the world's most groundbreaking companies, and he was standing by the side of the road, trying to help a stranger whose car had broken down. But something in the air felt different. Something in the woman's helplessness, mixed with the intensity of her situation, was pulling him in. He took a step closer to the car, kneeling down to take a look at the engine. Though he wasn't an expert, Elon had a natural curiosity for anything mechanical, and over the years, he'd gained some knowledge about car repairs, especially with his involvement in the electric vehicle world. "Looks like your engine's completely out of order," he said. "But let me see if I can help you out. Can you pop the hood?" The woman hesitated for a moment before nodding. She was still in disbelief, but she complied. As the hood opened, a faint smell of burnt oil reached Elon's nose, and his brows furrowed. This wasn't just a flat tire or a simple battery issue. It was clear the engine had overheated. Something serious was wrong. "I don't think we're going to fix this here," Elon said thoughtfully, rubbing his chin. "But I'll see what I can do to help." The woman, still in shock, looked at him. "But how? I don't know what to do, and I can't afford a tow truck right now." That's when Elon's mind began to race. He was about to tell her that there was nothing more he could do, but then a thought struck him. What if this wasn't just about fixing her car? What if there was something deeper at play? Something about her situation tugged at him, and he couldn't ignore it. Before he could speak, the woman interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't expect anyone to stop. Honestly, I was hoping someone would at least give me a ride to the nearest mechanic. She looked around, feeling the weight of her own helplessness. Elon's heart softened, and the wheels in his mind began to turn. What could he do to help, even beyond the car? What if he could change her life, even in this small moment? Little did he know that this brief encounter was about to take a completely unexpected turn. Elon stood there, staring at the woman, the gears in his mind turning faster than usual. The situation was a simple one: her car had broken down, and she needed help. But something about it felt deeper, more significant. Was this really just a chance encounter, or was there more at play here? Elon couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to be in this moment. "Look, I'll give you a ride," Elon said suddenly, breaking the silence. His words surprised even him. He wasn't one to offer rides to strangers, especially not someone he had just met. But he wasn't going to leave her stranded, and somehow, this woman's presence had struck a chord with him. The woman's eyes widened. You'll give me a ride? In your car?" she asked, her voice full of disbelief. Elon smiled lightly. "Yeah, that's what I said." He motioned towards his sleek Tesla. "It's not much, but it'll get us somewhere safer than standing here." The woman hesitated. Her car was a mess, and she had no idea what her next step was. But then she saw the kindness in his eyes, the calmness of his demeanor, and she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Maybe this was her chance to get out of this mess. "All right," she said, nodding slowly. "Thank you, really." Her voice was filled with gratitude, but a part of her still struggled to believe what was happening. As they walked towards the car, Elon noticed how uncomfortable she seemed, as if she were still processing the fact that a billionaire was helping her. He decided to break the tension with some light conversation. "So, what happened? Your car just decided to quit on you?" he asked casually as he opened the door for her. She sighed, looking a little embarrassed. "It's been acting up for a while. I was hoping to make it to a mechanic, but I guess I pushed it too far." She paused, looking out the window. "I'm just trying to get my life back together, you know." Elon nodded, not pressing her for more information. He had a feeling she had a story, one that was perhaps a bit more complicated than a simple car problem. He started the car, and they drove off in silence, the hum of the electric engine filling the space between them. As they drove, Elon's mind kept wandering back to her words, "trying to get my life back together." It was a simple phrase, but there was a depth to it, something that piqued his curiosity. Who was she? What was her story? And why did this feel like more than just a random moment? The woman sat quietly, lost in her own thoughts. She had never imagined her day would take such a turn. One minute she was stranded on the side of the road, and now she was riding in a Tesla, with Elon Musk himself at the wheel. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. Who was this man who had just offered her help without hesitation? Did he have some sort of hidden agenda, or was he just an incredibly kind person? As the car sped through the streets, she caught herself wondering what her life would look like if she could turn things around. She had always struggled, always felt like she wasn't enough, like she would never get out of the cycle of misfortune that seemed to follow her. She had worked hard, done everything right, but the breaks just never seemed to come her way. But now, here she was, in a car with Elon Musk, someone who had built an empire from the ground up. She couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to live in a world where people like him made the rules, where success seemed so effortless. Elon, on the other hand, was thinking about his own life. He had come so far, built companies that changed the world, yet there was always a part of him that felt something was missing. Was it the endless work? The pressure? The lack of genuine connection? As he glanced over at the woman beside him, he realized that maybe he was meant to do something more with his time and resources. Maybe this wasn't just about helping a random person, maybe it was about making a difference in a way that extended beyond business. The car turned a corner, and Elon pulled up to a small coffee shop at the edge of the city. "I'm going to grab a coffee," he said, glancing over at her. "You need anything while we're here?" The woman looked up, confused. "Coffee? I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Why are you being so nice to me?" Elon smiled softly. "Sometimes, helping someone is just the right thing to do. No strings attached. Plus, I'm kind of curious about your story. Something tells me you've got a good one." The woman blinked, still processing the unexpected turn her day had taken. "You don't have to know my story," she said quietly. "I'm just struggling." But Elon could sense there was more to it. And that's when the twist came. Elon stepped out of the car and made his way toward the coffee shop. The woman, still in disbelief, hesitated for a moment before following him. As she walked behind him, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She had been through so much in her life, and yet here she was, walking alongside one of the most famous men in the world, about to have coffee with him. It didn't feel real. Inside the coffee shop, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a welcome change from the tension that had been building up since their meeting. Elon ordered 2 cups of coffee, and as they waited, he glanced over at the woman, who was still sitting in a daze. There was something about her that intrigued him. She was not just a random person, there was a story there, a story of resilience, struggle, and perhaps, hope. "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" Elon asked casually, trying to ease the mood. The woman looked up, startled by his voice. "Oh, no. Go ahead," she replied, still unsure of what to make of the situation. "You said you were trying to get your life back together," Elon said gently, as he took a seat across from her. "What does that mean? What happened?" For a moment, she didn't answer. She wasn't sure if she wanted to share the details of her life with a stranger, especially not with someone like Elon Musk. But then, something in the way he looked at her made her feel safe. It wasn't pity in his eyes, but understanding. He didn't seem like he was trying to fix her, just listening. "I've been through a lot," she began, her voice soft. "I've had my fair share of bad luck. Lost my job, then my home, and now I'm stuck. I've been trying to start over, but every time I take a step forward, it feels like I'm pushed back 2 steps. She paused, looking down at her coffee cup, as if the weight of her own words was too much to bear. "I know it sounds dramatic, but sometimes, I just don't know how much longer I can keep going. It feels like the world is against me." Elon listened intently, his eyes fixed on her as she spoke. There was no judgment in his gaze, only empathy. He had heard stories like hers before, of people struggling, fighting to stay afloat, yet never quite reaching the surface. He had seen the hard work of countless people, trying their best to get ahead, only to be knocked down by circumstances beyond their control. "I get it," Elon said quietly. "Life can throw some crazy curveballs. But you're still here. And that says something. You're still fighting." The woman looked up, meeting his gaze. "Fighting? I guess. But it's hard when you feel invisible. Like no one sees you, no one cares." "Believe me," Elon said, "you're not invisible. You're not alone in this." They sat there for a few moments, both sipping their coffee in silence. The noise of the coffee shop seemed to fade away, and for once, the weight of the world didn't feel so heavy. In that brief moment, the woman felt like maybe, just maybe, things could get better. But there was something else she wasn't telling him. Something that had been eating away at her for a while, but she wasn't ready to open up about it yet. As they finished their drinks, Elon glanced at his watch. It was getting late, and he knew he had to leave soon. He had an important meeting coming up, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do more for this woman. There was a connection here, one he hadn't expected, and now he felt compelled to help her in a way he hadn't helped anyone before. He turned to her, a new sense of determination in his eyes. "Listen," he said, leaning in slightly, "I want to do something for you. Something that'll help you get back on your feet." The woman looked at him, her expression skeptical. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice still unsure. "I'm not just talking about giving you a ride or fixing your car," Elon continued. "I think you've got potential. You've got a story, and the world needs to hear it. What if I helped you get back on track? I'm talking about more than just money or a place to stay. I want to help you rebuild your life, give you a chance to do something meaningful." She stared at him in disbelief. "You're serious?" Her heart was racing, and she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You don't even know me. Why would you?" "I know you're not just some random person," Elon interrupted gently. "You've got something inside of you that most people don't have. I can see it. You've been knocked down, but you're still here, fighting. That's the kind of person I want to help." The woman's eyes filled with tears. She had never expected this. She had expected pity, maybe even sympathy, but not this, not someone offering to help her rebuild her life. "But, why me? Why would you do this?" Elon smiled, his expression softening. "Sometimes, the universe brings people into your life for a reason. And right now, I feel like I'm meant to be here for you." Her heart swelled with a mixture of emotions, disbelief, gratitude, and a glimmer of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Could it be? Could this truly be her chance to finally turn things around? Before she could respond, there was a brief pause. And that's when the twist she hadn't anticipated happened. Just as the woman was about to speak, the sound of a car horn broke through the moment. Elon's phone buzzed, and he quickly glanced at it. His expression shifted, the calm confidence replaced by a slight tension. He was momentarily distracted, the weight of his business obligations pulling him back into reality. "I'm sorry," Elon said, standing up and grabbing his jacket. "I've got to take this call. But don't go anywhere. We're not done yet." He gave her a reassuring smile before stepping out of the coffee shop to answer the call. The woman sat there, her mind racing. She had always been skeptical of people's kindness, especially those who had power or influence. People didn't offer help without expecting something in return, right? And yet here she was, sitting in a cafe with one of the richest men in the world, someone who had made an offer that seemed almost too good to be true. She couldn't help but wonder if this was just another act of charity, one of those feel-good moments that rich people love to create for themselves. But something in Elon's eyes made her believe it wasn't. It was genuine. The minutes ticked by as she stared out the window, trying to gather her thoughts. What if this was her chance? What if she could take control of her life again? But then the doubts crept in. She had always been told she wasn't good enough. People had looked down on her, mocked her, and made her feel invisible. How could someone like Elon Musk want to help someone like her? Elon returned after a few minutes, his demeanor now more focused, but there was a glimmer of determination in his eyes. "Sorry about that," he said as he sat down across from her again. "I'll make this quick. I've got a few things to sort out, but here's the deal." He pulled out his phone and tapped a few buttons. "I want you to meet with a couple of people I know, professionals who can help you get back on your feet. We'll set you up with a job training program. I'll make sure you have the resources you need. But more than that, I want to see you pursue something you're passionate about. What is it that you really want to do?" The woman blinked, overwhelmed by the speed at which everything was moving. "You're really serious about this?" she asked again, her voice faltering. Elon nodded firmly. "I'm serious. You've been through enough, and I know how hard it can be to take that first step. But you've got the potential, and I'm here to help you make it happen." A long pause hung between them, as she tried to process everything he had just said. "But, why? Why are you doing this for me?" Elon leaned back in his chair, looking at her thoughtfully. Because I believe in second chances, he said quietly. And because sometimes, helping others is the only way to make a difference. I've had my share of failures, you know. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the people who helped me along the way. For a moment, the woman couldn't find the words. The weight of his offer, the sincerity in his voice, and the suddenness of the change in her life were too much to comprehend. How could this be real? Was she really getting the chance to turn her life around? Okay, she said finally, her voice trembling with emotion. I'll do it. I'll take whatever opportunity you're offering. Elon smiled, a look of genuine pride on his face. I know you'll make it. I'm here for you, every step of the way. And if you ever doubt yourself, remember this moment. You're capable of more than you know. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, fate decided to throw one last curveball into the mix. As the woman got up to leave, a figure appeared at the door of the coffee shop, a tall, well-dressed man who looked vaguely familiar. The woman squinted, trying to place him. He was holding a large envelope in his hand, and his eyes were fixed on her as he made his way toward the table. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Something about him felt off. Elon, too, noticed the man and straightened up, his expression instantly alert. The man stopped in front of the woman, his voice smooth and calculated. Excuse me, he said with a polite smile, are you the one I've been looking for? His eyes glinted as he spoke, but there was something unsettling about the way he looked at her. The woman felt a knot form in her stomach. She had no idea who this man was, but she instinctively felt a sense of unease. She glanced at Elon, who stood up immediately, his posture defensive. Who are you? Elon asked, his voice sharp, but calm. The man gave a short laugh, as if amused by the situation. Ah, it seems there's some confusion. I've been tracking this woman for quite some time now. She owes me, well, let's say, a debt. The woman froze. Debt? She hadn't owed anyone anything in years. Who was this man? Elon's expression darkened. I think you're mistaken, he said, stepping forward. This woman is under my protection now. If you have a problem with that, we can discuss it elsewhere. But the man wasn't backing down. He smiled a little too widely, a cold gleam in his eyes. Oh, I think you'll find that things are never as simple as they seem, Mr. Musk. There are always strings attached. Elon stood firm, his eyes never leaving the man who now stood before them. The woman, her heart racing, couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. She felt trapped between these two worlds, the promise of a new beginning, and now, this stranger who seemed to know far more than he should. The tension in the air was palpable, and she felt her hands tremble slightly. What do you want? Elon's voice was calm but carried an undeniable weight, a warning beneath his words. His posture had shifted, no longer the casual man who had offered a ride to a stranger but someone who was prepared to stand his ground. The man's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. I'm just here to collect what's owed to me, he said, his gaze flicking to the woman. She knows what I'm talking about. Don't you? He emphasized the last words, a taunting edge in his voice. The woman's chest tightened as memories she had tried so hard to forget began to surface. She hadn't wanted to admit it, but she knew this man, or rather, the name he represented. This wasn't just a random encounter. He was part of the dark side of her past, a reminder of everything she had been running from. She had tried to escape this very man, the one who had once made her life hell with promises of help that came with strings attached. The debt he was talking about wasn't monetary, it was something much darker. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling as she tried to speak. I don't owe you anything, she said, the words barely coming out. She turned to Elon, who was now studying the man with a mixture of suspicion and resolve. He's lying. I don't owe him anything. Elon raised an eyebrow but didn't look away from the man. Is that so? He said evenly, his gaze sharp. Then why don't you tell me who you are and what this is all about? The man's smirk faltered for a brief moment, but then he recovered, straightening up. I'm just a businessman. And sometimes, businesses have debts that need to be paid. She's been avoiding her responsibility for too long. The woman felt a wave of panic rise in her chest. She wanted to explain everything, to tell Elon what had really happened, how she had fallen into this trap in the first place. But the words wouldn't come. The situation had escalated too quickly. This man wasn't just a reminder of her past, he was the gatekeeper of it. And if he didn't let her go, everything she had been working towards could come crashing down in an instant. Elon, however, was no stranger to high-stakes situations. He wasn't going to let this man intimidate them. With a calm but commanding voice, he addressed the stranger. You're not getting anything from her. If you have an issue, you can take it up with me. But I can tell you right now, whatever this is, it's not going to happen. The man chuckled, as if the very idea of standing up to him was laughable. You think you can just intervene in my business? You really don't know who you're dealing with, Musk. He paused, sizing up Elon. You think your money and fame can protect her? You have no idea what's at stake here. Elon's expression remained unshaken. I don't need to know the details. What I do know is that this isn't how things are going to go down. He turned to the woman, his gaze softening. Are you ready to move forward with your life, no strings attached? The woman nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and fear. She knew Elon was trying to protect her, but the weight of the past was something she couldn't easily escape. Her heart raced as she tried to steady herself. The man, realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, took a step back. You're making a mistake, Musk, he said, his voice low, almost threatening. This isn't over. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving the coffee shop in silence. The woman let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, and Elon turned to face her. You're safe, he said gently. He won't bother you again. I promise. She stared at him, unable to fully process what had just happened. The past that had haunted her for so long was still there, lingering just out of reach, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could be the start of something different. Elon, she began, but she couldn't find the words. There was too much to say, too much she had been holding back. But in that moment, she didn't need to explain. He had already shown her that she was worth helping, that her story wasn't over. I know, Elon said with a small smile. I know what you're thinking. But this is just the beginning. Now, you take the next step. You'll be fine. The woman nodded, a small, hopeful smile forming on her face. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a chance. A real one. And it was all thanks to the man who had stopped his car, who had seen her when no one else had, and who had given her the one thing she needed most, a chance. As they left the coffee shop together, the sun was setting outside, casting a warm golden glow over the city. The future, once so uncertain, suddenly seemed full of possibility. And the woman knew, in her heart, that she was no longer invisible.